right. Sorry about that. I hate when I'm gonna go live and then there's a countdown and then you don't honor the countdown. That's so annoying. But welcome back to the Circle Club. I'm Tyrone. Usually we have movie mates. We have Jamie Lee. We got Taco every once in a while, but today is just me. Jamie Lee is on holiday, but crazy. Can't believe it. This is the end. This is the end. Only one episode left of Secession. Man, funeral. So, season 4, episode 9 is called Church and State, and that's what this was. It was just everyone in. I think it's called Church and State because the Waystar family is basically the church. They're in power. They decide who gets to be in power and all this stuff. So it's sort of that old nod to that Italian Renaissance period. And the state was definitely there. We had Mencken, Madsen was there, senators, everyone who was supposed to be there was there. So this was obviously the biggest networking event in the world. And so everyone's trying to be on top of their game. They try to be sensitive because of the funeral. And then the family is trying to find ways to balance themselves while also making sure that they get the throne, right? You know, this is the end. This is the end of our journey of the Game of Thrones. And I've heard a lot of people say, how do we only have one episode left? It doesn't feel right. It feels like it's going to end open-ended. The whole point of the show, I mean, the name is called Secession. So the whole point of the show is that, you know, we're done. You know, once Logan passes on to someone else, we're done. What I'll be curious to see is, do they do anything with the will here? Because I think Taco said last stream that this has only been like a week since Logan's dead, or like week and a half or so. And so I'm curious if that will has any say in there, or if it ultimately gets decided by the shareholders, which looks like that's what they were going with in the previews. But let's just jump into this episode. So off the bat, I wanted to talk about Kendall for a sec. We have this confrontation, and prior to this, Kendall and his wife, what's her name, Rava? Yes, Rava. Rava is like, I'm taking the kids out of the city. Like, they're not going to be at the funeral. And that just sets Ken off, man. He goes crazy. He's like, you can't do this. You can't take my kids from me. And he's freaking out. And obviously, it's very important for him to have the kids there. But you see Kendall in real time realizing his decision to allow Mencken to become president by basically backing Roman has not just a political effect around the world. Now it's personally affecting him. And, you know, he wants to go to the lawyer hunt and all that. And he would have no argument, to be honest. He would be... I don't think he understands the magnitude of what the kids are feeling, them being people of color. And so I think that this was a moment for Kendall where he sort of has to, like, basically lash out at someone or let his frustrations out, but he chooses Jess, who is at the same time had something on her calendar that Tuesday or the Tuesday coming up where she was basically going to resign. And so they have this, like, basically like this face off, this stare off of, like, he's like, really, you're gonna leave now, Jess, when I when I need you the most. Actually, that's not even like, that was like a kind version of what he said. He was just ruthless to her and nasty, and you're not gonna find something better than this. Like, and this is sort of the Achilles heel of all of these characters, is they try to be their dad, but they're not their dad, because their dad, although he was a brute and he was awful and mean and all these things, he was respected because he got stuff done and he knew what he was talking about and he was knowledgeable. Where these 4 children feel just like trust fund babies who are playing with toys. But I thought this was an important moment to add for Kendall, because I know for me personally, I've definitely felt empathy for Kendall throughout this series. And I know I can't be alone. I'm sure other people look at Kendall and they're like, oh man, this guy's been through so much, and how you know, how can he not be next? He's the oldest, he's the most trained, he has the experience, while the other two sort of jumped in, but and then he's got to deal with the death situation that he's looming over, his family, his drug addiction. And so they definitely make it so you feel bad for Kendall throughout the series. But I thought that this was a solid or good reminder to the audience that Kendall, despite, us feeling the way we do, Kendall is just as bad as the rest of them, and willing to hurt anyone or to protect his family. And at the same time, he can't even protect his own family. But he was just really mean and nasty to Jess. And I think Jess is one of those characters who's created as the fan insert. So as we're watching it, we're like, yeah, we're Jess. We've been there. We've been treated like this from superiors, supervisors, bosses, whoever. And so I thought that was a good moment to kind of bring Kendall back down a pedestal, because he was nasty. He was nasty. There's no way around it. Next up, I love this little moment. It's Logan's ladies here. You got Marsha, you got Carrie, you got the wife. I don't know the other woman's name. I think it was like Amy or something, but she was my Marsha. And what I love about this moment is I think it's the patriarchy and society tends to find ways when women are duped by a man, or a man is cheating or whatever. Society sort of tells young women and older that they are responsible, or it's their fault, or you should have been prettier, or you should have answered the man's needs, or you were a dumb, how did you not know, that kind of thing. But truth be told, I mean, if this has happened repeatedly, as we can see here, there's 4 different instances, he's clearly the bad guy in this situation, right? And what I love here is that Logan's ex-wife, and I don't know her name. I don't really think anyone knows her name. Like, the actress Harriet Waller. Let me look it up, because I feel like this is something that everyone is always like, I don't know her name. Lady Caroline Collingwood. She was only in 5 episodes, so I mean, fair. It kind of makes sense that we don't know. But Lady Caroline, she goes, "Hey, all of you come and sit here." God, Logan would have hated this, and I just love that, because it's just that last F you to Logan in the afterlife. And I thought Marsha clearly, has had some time to decompress and think about what's going on here. And yeah, how she treated, I said in the last year, I was like, I didn't really love how she treated Carrie, and I thought that was a bit nasty, because I mean, yeah, did she cheat while they were together, or was there some overlap? But like, that's also a Logan issue, right? I mean, he's the one probably approaching her. She was an assistant, and so that relationship is not appropriate. But I just thought this was a nice little moment that the writers did here, where we just get to kind of give Logan his last screw you from these ladies, who he's screwed over literally and metaphorically. But yeah, the mom was just being a menace the entire funeral. It was like a holiday for her. Next up, we got Roman's speech. Boy, we all saw this coming from a mile away. Roman had the shield on the entire time. He was fine. When they went to Sweden for the deal with Matson to meet each other's teams, and they're going up that ski lodge, whatever thing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm fine. There's no problem. Connor, do whatever you want." He's like, "I'm thick as a nail, and I'm strong, and I don't need anything." And this episode starts out with him being just like, "Ah, yes, I'm Roman, and yes, don't you think I remind you of Logan today?" And boy, and I love how when it comes full circle, Kendall, after everything sort of like passed, because your siblings crying over your parents' death or someone else, like, it's sort of your job to comfort them and aid them, let them know it's going to be all right, because it's just a thing you can't control out of your body. When that time happens, when someone close to you, you lose them, which will happen to all of us, it becomes sort of this uncontrollable feeling. And I think that Roman had a reality check here that, you're the little brother, and you're playing this big bad wolf, and yeah, you do have a couple moves, but like, you're human just like the rest of us. And what's so interesting to me, which I'll get into in a moment, is how they all portray Logan. Like, despite Logan being such just nasty man, an angry and heathing man, like they all are there out of respect, because I think there was some sort of honesty there. And we see later when they're at the burial site, Frank and Carl, Shiv goes up to them and asks, was he all that? I mean, was he, like, basically, was he human at all? But did he have his moments? And they say, yes, he has his moments. And I don't know if they're just saying that to comfort her or themselves, but we even see a moment where my boy Hugo's breaking down, and it's like Hugo's had the worst. He's been whacked around, slapped around, and all that, and he even had a moment where he had to, like, break down and cry and stuff. So that was it tells you that Logan is human. And I think, again, a lot of people who are like Logan in real life, I think it has to do with ignorance, educated in other senses but not socially, educated in a lot of other ways, or their specialty but not culturally, and just like, as his brother mentioned during his speech prior to Roman, like, he had his own trauma he dealt with, and they gone through. And I mean, for them to both, his brother not and Logan's brother and him, to have gone through what they did at the age of 4 and 5, where they're like laying in a field for 3 days, like that whole thing was just crazy, and to lose their sister, which everyone knows is like a you don't talk about kind of thing. It devastated Logan, and it made him almost feel, I have to be ruthless and make sure my family is protected and safe. And honestly, he has. That's what he's done. Like, they want more, and they want to have the legacy of dad and take it to the next level to impress him in the afterlife. But, like, truth be told, they've already done everything. Logan has done everything he can for them, and they have this beautiful life. They never have to work again, but it's never going to be enough. And I think it's because Logan also had this idea of, like, once I'm gone, my children someone will take it on and keep the reins and make it better than I ever could. And he never really groomed them or trained them throughout that process. So for Logan, it's sort of, it's difficult, right? It's difficult because he should have given them a little bit more love and compassion, but at the same time, he had to grow up like brute and rough, and being sort of a hard ass, and he thought that doing that to the children would make them like himself. Pressure makes diamonds, but really pressure just makes tears, because that's what we got here. And back to Roman's speech. Roman goes through the speech, and he doesn't know how to handle his emotions, and he just breaks down up there. And this is there's a personal ramification, but it's the political and the throne ramifications as well, right? Because once Roman cries up there, he shows weakness. And no, crying is not weak. I cried during when Roman was crying, and if you didn't cry during that, or like get a little teary, like, you might want to check in with a therapist or something. Like, come on, folks. But Roman shows weakness to the president, who is way more traditional, way more conservative, would never cry. And even, he makes fun of him after. He goes, oh, the weak fest is over. I'm kidding. It's like, yeah, well, if there was ever a day to cry, right? But so I think he's sort of viewed in the room as weak. And then, the other two siblings go up there. Kendall goes up after to kind of clean house. He's like, all right, my uncle goes up there and rips my father. He says, yeah, he had his trauma and issues, but he was a nasty, vile man and evil. And people don't really like that at a funeral, obviously, because they're remembering the good times. But I feel like, personally, I'm like, if you chose to live a nasty life, you chose to be bad to people, you chose to be evil, one, you can't expect people to show up to your funeral, and two, that's how you should be remembered. It is what it is. And family members can have issues and say, oh, you can't say that or whatever, but that person is grieving in their own way, and they're gone, and they're saying what they're saying, and it is what it is. Logan wasn't a great guy. We know that. and I'm sure he was slightly human or had his moments. I'm sure he loved his grandkids, all that kind of stuff. So I think if there was one thing I wish that they did more was that. I feel like we didn't get enough moments of Logan with his grandchildren because a lot of times when uh, uh, the parent and child, dynamic, they have their issues, their traumas, their childhood issues that sort of sprinkle into adulthood. But typically, the grandfather child generation, that is a bit of a better dynamic. Or you have the child teaching grandpa or grandma things and to how and I guess and how to move forward with the future and makes them sort of more of awake. Like I imagine if Logan, maybe not because he's so ruthless, but I imagine if Logan spent time with Kendall's children, he's like, well, these are my grandkids. I can't leave the world this screwed up and divided and like just vindictive and conservative and liberal and all this kind of stuff, and instead choose to leave it sort of a little less agitated. Again, he is who he is, and I think he thinks, well, uh, even if my grandchildren didn't work for the company while I was there, or the world is not going to be nasty to them, they'll always be wealthy millionaires and billionaires. And honestly, the truth of that is that's not actually true because when you look at the Vanderbilts, how far they've fallen from grace. I mean, Anderson Cooper now is a TV host, and yes, he makes millions and millions and millions of dollars every year, but like that family was like the Roys, and so it's not guaranteed. And if you have a generation who screws it up, like the kids may do here, that's not guaranteed for everyone. So I think that was really why he was so hard in trying to continue the legacy. Now Kendall does his best to honor his dad and basically say all the things that I just said, that he was a tough guy, but he got stuff done, and he appointed presidents and fixed oil situations around the world and made malls and movies and culture and life. And that is such a interesting way to put it because that is what he did. It's like, I think Kendall's point is that, like, when you're trying to be a game changer, a dynamic, a Steve Jobs, Shakespeare person, right? Like these are tours of life. You can't necessarily always control how the public will embrace what you have put into the world. And now we know Logan obviously did those intentionally to agitate people for ratings and views and whatever to get what he wants and power. But Kendall's point being is that, you have to be bold, you have to be daring, you have to be willing to not be likable at times, you have to be willing to say the thing that no other person in the room will, that needs to be said. And that's what Kendall is doing right now. Roman physically can't say, the uncle can't even really come to terms. Like, he's so just disgusted with Logan and who he's become or became that he can't even really take a moment to just honor him in the good things per se that he did. And so Kendall is stepping up here basically, and he gets a round of applause from everyone, and it becomes this basically coronation of Kendall a little bit. But Shiv pops in there and is like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to let the boys have the entire show. And so she basically, after Kendall's long rambling, in a very condensed way, says, it was tough to be his daughter. It was tough to be his daughter. Like, yeah, I know that my dad is a conservative nut job and misogynistic and all these sort of things, and I had to grow up with that. Like, imagine how, like, you feel that way. That's how I felt, and I had to live with him. You know what I mean? But that being said, he was a man who got things done and was honorable, and I think that the time has come to sort of embrace some of those things that he's done, but we got to move towards a new direction. And I think that was ultimately that he wouldn't want basically either of the boys. Like, that's sort of how she was saying, is she wouldn't want it to be where the boys do everything the same exact way. It's got to be change. It's got to be dynamic. And that, again, is her way to sort of position herself to say, hey, I deserve the company too. And then so after the aftermath, as I mentioned, Mencken is there, and they're all saying, sorry and all that. Also, real quick, Connor wanted to give a speech, and I cracked up when Shiv was like, I don't think we can let you say this without it going through legal. It was just like, what was in that speech? I miss the old days of TV shows and movies where they would have bonus content and bonus features where it was still canon, but like it just went off. Like I would love if this is something that artists and creators should do in general, is like we should be able to get to see what Connor's speech would have been. Like maybe he's in his room reading the speech and he says it, and it's just a short, and like they add that as an extra for the show or in betweener kind of thing, and just give the character 5 minutes, 4 minutes to do a monologue, and really get to soak in and see how everyone reacts to him. Maybe he just gives it for the family privately, right? But that's what's difficult. Excuse me. That's what's difficult about making a TV show or movie, is like you just only have so much time. You can't get everyone in there. But courting Mencken, so Kendall basically comes out the winner. As I said, Roman sort of gets made fun of by Mencken. He's, oh, you're a little weeping. Oh, well. And then he's like, yeah. But he's like, no, tough day. But Mencken opens his eyes, kind of like, okay. So I see. Logan would have probably wanted Kendall because he can handle through the adversity. He can go up there, be a man, and say the things that needs to be said. But Shiv's gonna make sure that she's seen. Even Greg goes up, and that's how it all starts. Greg goes up, oh, hello, we're the one who made the call. Tom and I made the call for you, and to get you there to be president. And Roman's like, all right, time for you to pack it up, Greggy. Like, what are we doing here? But Kendall and Mencken go back and forth, and they're discussing sort of, hey, maybe we can make this thing work here. Do we really want, some foreign entity here making all the decisions? And that's a lot of power. And I love the writers of the show to think of this, because like think of this in real life, right? If Fox News were to be taken over by someone who's Swedish, or someone who is from that sort of Nordic area, much more progressive and left-leaning, like how does that affect American politics and the capitalist system that we have here, right? Because that is the manipulation that goes on amongst CNN and Fox News. Like that shapes everything and how people see things, and a lot of people don't go on the internet to find those nuances, so they only get whatever's on the news. So yeah, that was them putting that in, which I didn't expect. It's been a great dynamic, and really just brought out a lot of interesting political things that have always been there in the show, but they put them on the right on top, so you can't miss it, right? But Shivy goes in there, and she's like, hey, maybe you want Matson, but hey, what about me being that U.S. spot? Now, he sort of takes it in, he buys it. It seems like he was buying it. And I don't know, man, like, because the thing is, Mencken's like, all right, well, do I really want these two knucklehead boys who are, want to be Daddy Jr., or do I want this woman here who's is basically admitting straight to my face, I don't like you, but I like ratings, I like money, and that's all that matters to me, which I think is a lot more like Logan than those two sort of like, kissing his butt, right? And so I think he ends up being impressed, but I think it is funny because I think in real life that would never happen. He wouldn't even give Shiv the time of day. Definitely a boys' club, but I think that was kind of a nice thing that they did here. And then just I want to talk for a quick second about the fall of Rome. Like it's sad because when he is breaking down, they put the shot on Jerry, and I thought, oh, Jerry's gonna go up there, right, or help him, and it's just like, man, you think back to the beginning of the series, season 1, season 2, if Roman would have just worked with Jerry and did what she said and practiced the way that she told him to practice, and I mean, she's got years and years and years of experience, right? Like, but his ego got the best of him. His competitiveness with his siblings got to the best of him. He was all about family, family, family for a long time, and then I think once the siblings sort of got shady, he was like, well, if they're gonna be shady, then I gotta be shady. But I genuinely, I will die on this hill. I think that Roman wanted initially them to all run the company together. Whether it was this one, which is ATN, or the other one that they're gonna buy in like episode one or the end of last season episode or the beginning of this season episode one. And so you just look at this final sort of scene here where he is a masochist because that's all he knows, and his father beat him to a pulp, physically and verbally and metaphorically, and that's all he knows. And so there are some people, I was talking about this the other day with my girlfriend, because some people don't like it when you're working out, right? You're working out and the trainer is like screaming at you, oh, give me 10 more. Oh, that's so weak. Come on. That gets some people juiced up. Like me, like I like to talk trash when I'm being competitive, and that juices me up, and I'm like, go, go, go. Some people, that really breaks them down. That's not the way that they communicate. I think Roman is that way. I think he does, but it's to the extreme. And we know with Jerry, he likes Jerry to sort of like talk dirty to him and talk down to him, and like he sort of likes to be called names and things and just kind of be creepy and weird. Like when Shiv says she's pregnant, tells them she's pregnant, he gets all weird about it. Oh, is it mine? Like little things like that, and it's just like, what's wrong with you? And it's because him getting beat is how he sort of takes in as, he's not worthy, he's not good enough. He's the youngest brother, right? So all of these sort of things come together, and then for him to go out there like, Roman, you shouldn't be out there. It's pretty intense. I thought Roman was gonna get shot. I thought something was gonna happen to him, because like that would have been a crazy ending. Like no one would have saw that coming, and these people clearly hate them, right? And so as he goes through, they're like shut, like they're calling him all types of names. They know who he is, I think, or like he looks like a suit, so they're like, oh, you don't understand what we're going through. And so he goes directly into the crowd, gets pushed around, trampled, spit at, and then like that's sort of his it's his kick. It's what gets him going, man. That's what drives him, and it's insane. But I just look at the Fall of Rome as such a shame, because as nasty as Rome was and just out of touch, he really was, in my opinion, the one who could have embraced, because Logan clearly, in my estimation, he wanted Kendall, but it was like Kendall doesn't got that dog in him. But Roman definitely has that dog in him. And so it was his sort of to lose at some point, and he couldn't get it done. He couldn't get it done. And, I think this story is a tragedy. It's a tragic story. And we see Roman here. He's done. The episode before, we saw Connor. Done. And before that, we saw Tom. Done. We see Greg. Done. And so now we are at the very end, and we got Shiv versus the boys. That's where we've been. This whole show's been leading up to this, and if it's the tragedy we expect it to be, that means there's really only two people left to lose: Shiv and Kendall. I think Shiv, it may be she loses the baby, which then means she has no connection with Tom, which means that she isn't a mother. She can't break the generational cycle. The uncle even kind of says that too, of like, this is just like a generational trauma thing, that like why Logan was so nasty and brutal to them. But I don't know if she has this kid or not. I can see it getting nasty too in this last episode, where they sort of use that against her and say she's pregnant, which is pretty unforgivable, honestly. If like they do that, it's like, all right, you guys are siblings, and there's got to be some sort of like line you don't cross, right? But I think the boys are gonna go full end here. They just Shiv has been really shaky, and I don't know why it took me so long to realize that her name Shiv is, Shiv. She's gonna stab you in the back, and that's what she's really done this entire season. She did it beforehand, and you can make an argument that they've done it to her as well, but I think it was sort of unexpected from her because there were times where they tried to bring her in, and they felt like she was. I guess she felt that she was never going to be really at the table. I don't know if that's true. I think they could have. I think worst case scenario, maybe the first year, which like they said, it's like two, three. Yeah, no, we can't have three there. They're not gonna let that happen. Like that's basically us taking it over. And so now here we are at this final showdown, and to get into predictions, folks, I've been watching this show for years now. Years. I mean, when did Succession start? 2018? Been watching this show since 2018. There are 38 episodes, and I genuinely do not know what is going to happen in this final episode. I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of movies. I can't get a pulse on this one. I can't read it. I have no idea what's going to happen. So all my predictions that I have are just out there, I mean, I said Shiv may have a miscarriage. That could happen. I thought for a long time that Kendall may die. We know from the actors who play Frank and Carl, the guy who plays Carl, David Rash, he had said that you're never going to guess the ending. And so if that's the case, I'm like, well, I don't know then. It could be Mattson. I can see Mattson somehow, some way wiggling in and getting that deal, and the kids are off the table and they have nothing except their stock and all the money and that they're going to get from the deal. That 50-50 deal, which honestly could be a huge thing or a terrible thing, because if Mattson gets it, those numbers are out there now, right? So they're going to get half in cash, half in stock. Once those numbers come out and they buy the company, maybe they don't have enough capital to actually buy Waystar. Or maybe, it goes through and then the stock tanks. And that's the tragic fall of Waystar, right? I think this last episode it's the last tragedy. When I think about who could potentially deserve it, for a long time I thought it was Kendall, and now I'm like, I don't think so. Funny enough, like I know people are like, okay, but I thought Cousin Greg at some point could have been, a Logan's little pawn there, but he works on. I talked about earlier how the grandfather and grandchild sort of have that that connection, but he's a nephew, right? So there is sort of a different sort of love there too. It's almost like, yeah, like you're not my kids, but you kind of are, and I'll have your back and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, does Connor get a chance? Doubtful. I felt that they should have made Connor president. But if we had maybe one more season, that could have just been chaotic, and we could have got that. But just not enough time. And so I don't know. Why don't I do this? Why don't I look up some theories going on right now on Reddit and see what people think here about that, or about this final episode, because I don't know. I mean, comment down below. What are you all thinking for the final episode? Do we have any ideas, any thoughts? It seems like impossible to guess this final episode. So let's see. Series finale theory. All right. Based on the assumption, let's see. Shiv is pro Gojo. Clearly, Ken is anti. Roman probably gets beaten up in 409. Ken will lose the votes and lose his temper. They'll have a Ken and Roman fight scene. Being very lost and confused by the vote, he ends up in a battery park, possibly jumps in the water, as some people saw. Man, I hate if this was the finale, how it played out. Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I do think that Kendall and Roman may have a little fight at the end there, but eh, if anything, I think he might die, which would be just tragic. Apparently, the series finale is going to be called With Open Eyes. It's going to be 90 minutes long. Okay. That is going to be crazy. I imagine we're just going to be all like bawling, man, and like this is the end of a road. But it's so great that they are ending it that way, though, because that's what you want. You don't want to end it. You don't want to end it with kind of happy ending, or these people get what they want. I don't think I wouldn't like that. I'd be okay with it. An ending is always so hard, though, dude. It's man. All right, so one of these people here, Pluto MMA, says, I think now would be a time for some theories about how it all ends. I think the most common theory is that Kendall will end up on top, but having lost the connection to his family, completing his killer arc. Yeah, if Kendall is on top, but he doesn't have the kids, his siblings don't really care for him anymore, then what does it matter, right? Because the whole point of Logan keeping it in the family was so that it stays within the family, and the family is there for each other and has each other's back. But yeah, he's definitely, if Kendall gets it, then I don't think that it'll be as happy as people think. An alternative theory that could be very dumb is Tom is going to end up as CEO. That's what I was thinking. Mattson thinks that Mencken agreed to an American CEO, but I have a strong feeling that one or both of them don't want it to be Shiv, a woman. That's it, and that's what I thought. I'm like, Mattson would be probably fine with that, but Mencken, Mencken doesn't really seem like the type who would allow that to happen. So that would be definitely strange for his character. But yeah, if Tom did get him in the office, Tom has a connection with the board still. He's working like a dog for the election. He put him in position of power, but I don't know. He's a lapdog. Speak of which, oh my God, I legitimately when Kendall goes up to when Kendall goes up to Hugo and he's like, "Yo, will you be my dog for me?" And he goes, "Woof woof." I lost it, bro. I lost it. That was so funny, man. Hugo, like that actor. I could just talk about all the actors all day, man, because the cast is just, it's one for the ages. It is one for the ages. The actor's name is Fisher Stevens. Let's see what else he's done. He was in The Blacklist. He was in Hackers. Before the Flood. That actor he's been working since 1981 though, but he's in The French Dispatch. Makes sense. He looks like he'd be in a Wes Anderson movie. He's in The Grand Budapest. Okay, so maybe he does a couple of those. Law and Order. The Blacklist is a big one. I would love for him to get some more roles because his timing is just perfect. Let's see. Another theory. Greg talking to Mencken, being close to Mattson. Tom knows ATN. He would be easier to puppet master. He's already in the boat with Mencken. It could be Tom, but controlled by Mattson. That is possible. I mean, Greg has been making these little moves the entire time. Tom has been making these little moves the whole time. Does it pay off? I don't know. Seems like a lot of people think Tom. I've been pushing my Tom theory forever, and I definitely think he's still in this. But to me, the key is that the siblings are going to take a run at each other at the board meeting, while the members have been talking about kicking all of the siblings out for their past sins and fiduciary breaches. And if that happens, Tom is in a good spot. Yeah. And also, Tom is not connected to Shiv now, right? Because everyone knows that those two are not really together. And so that would sort of allow them to put him in there. He's familiar. He's been running Fox or Waystar. And so they don't have to really worry about that cross-contamination. And then, in theory, season 5 that we're never going to get, maybe the family could somehow get back in there. But Yeah, I could see it being Tom as well as sort of twist ending. It's expected to be Roy, so Tom would definitely bring the wow factor. It would be a great run for him. Yeah, and if you think about it, Tom also he he was the one who sided with Logan. He took his whips and lashes, and it may be sort of something to say about corporate America too. Of like, despite the others maybe being the despite the others being in the family and it making sense for them to be there and maybe credentials and whatever, that in corporate America, if you take your licks and whips, that you may get a shot at it. But I don't think that's real. I don't think that's how it really works. Could be that Tom is just the white American boy who has that look and all, even despite the actor being British. So then that would sort of be this discussion of like Tom failed his way to the top. Last theory here. The entire series has seemingly been about the conflict between Logan's successor versus keeping their humanity. This is shown most strongly with Kendall as he's constantly torn between doing what it takes to win versus family and other values. But it's also demonstrated by Shiv in the conflict between what it takes to win versus her own family and her values. So the conclusion to the show has to feature both of them making that final decision. Right, right, and that's what it's all going to come down to. But as we've said, Roman has made a decision to choose himself over the family, and that didn't work for him, obviously. Connor, similarly, has chosen himself, I think, more often than not, over the family, because if he was choosing the family, he wouldn't have ran for president, right? And then so, to me, it's possible Shiv. I think Shiv is the answer. I think Shiv makes sense because Shiv has a lot of the similar characteristics of Logan. She's got the dog. That nice woman face. But like the problem is Shiv will be there, but not really get to do what she wants. She sort of be a puppet, and so it's like, all right, you got you're on the throne. Congratulations, but you have no power. Is it worth it? Probably not. And then I think about Kendall. Kendall, to me, the perfect tragic ending for Kendall, or pathetic ending, would be you lost your child, you lost your wife, you don't get to see them anymore, that your daddy's not around, you lost your siblings, you've gone through all these sort of things, you've gotten a second chance after killing someone, you've gone through all of this journey, and you still haven't figured out that nobody wins when the family feuds, Jay-Z. Well, hey, the throne is yours. If that's what it wants, then guess what? The cycle has just repeated itself, and now you are the new Logan Roy. And I think that would mean Kendall wouldn't have. Logan didn't have people's respect in a different capacity, but Kendall wouldn't have their respect in a much different way because the way he climbed to the top, I think, would have been seen by others as very, very. You didn't grind to get there. You didn't take people out to get there. You stab people in the back, which no one respects someone who makes it to the top, who stabs people in the back, lies, cheats. It's always got to be, hey, man, you didn't see your family and you worked on weekends and all that, and that's brutal what you put on the family, but hey, you wanted it, right? And I think that's more respected in the capitalist America structure that we're in. Um, this person says, I think the moment of truth comes when Roman is in trouble and needs his siblings. Episode 9 concluded with Roman in obvious trouble. He's spiraling. My theory is at some point during episode 10, negotiations are heated. Shiv and Kendall are in the middle of the battle, and a call comes from a desperate Roman in need of help. Kendall and Shiv have to make the choice whether to prioritize winning the company versus their brother. And I bet one chooses the company and one chooses their brother. That's a great, great theory, and that's a great end to stop here. Yeah, I like that theory a lot. To me, that would be sort of a poetic ending, and if that's the case, I don't see why Shiv would show up for Roman. I mean, yes, she's sensitive. She's been there, but Roman has just been so nasty and sarcastic, and she probably feels that she's always had to take a backseat to the boys. It would be I don't think Kendall could live with himself knowing that after how he killed someone in the first season and his father died. I don't think he'd be able to live with himself knowing that he chose the company over going to help his brother. And so that would lead us to conclude that Shiv would be the ultimate winner in the end. As I said, I have no idea. I'm so lost. This is the first time I've been very just the finale just not having any idea. I predicted Game of Thrones, surprisingly. I've got my theories about Euphoria. I don't know what's going to happen with this one. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you're still watching or listening, thank you. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys comment some of your thoughts and ideas and subscribe. This has been an excellent, fun journey watching this series over the past couple years with you all. And I can't wait to see what these creators put out next for us, because this was fantastic. I mean, that episode 3 was the best television that I think we've probably ever gotten, or in contention of top 5, top 10 episodes. And so the writers, credit to them, round of applause. And yeah, that'll do it. Thank you all for watching. And as we always say here, just be you. Peace.